So that was the kickoff and then the solo to a song called Toy Heart. And it was originally recorded by Bill Monroe back in 1949, but the version that I played was based on Doyle Lawson's playing on the Bluegrass album. So let's go through the song and I'll show you some tips, like not really tricks, maybe tricks, I don't know, tips and or tricks for getting through this particular arrangement of the song. As always, I don't think you have to play it exactly like this. This is more just like a reference. But if you want to play it exactly like this, then I can show you. But first, let's listen to it slowed down so you get sort of a sense of what's going on first. 1, 2, 1. So let's look at the kickoff. A lot of times, certainly with bluegrass songs, they'll start out with a solo or maybe just like half of a solo or just a couple of phrases. And so that entire thing is sort of referred to as the kickoff, but also you could refer to just the pickup notes going into it as the kickoff. Where if you were going to memorize some kickoffs, you would be memorizing pickup notes that you could play into other kickoffs. I know that, believe me, it's less confusing than I made it sound. And this one's a really straightforward one. The first melody note we have is this G. Darling, you toyed with a toy heart. We want to lead into this note. And you want to do it in a very obvious way because it's cueing everybody else to come in at the same time. So you want it to be obvious. You don't want to you're not trying to trick anybody. To make it obvious, we're going to play pretty much an arpeggio. An arpeggio meaning you take the notes from the chord. In this case, G, a C, E, and G. Oh my God. When you play them individually, that's an arpeggio. So in this case, since we're going to this note, this is our first melody note. Darling, you toy with a toy heart. We can play an arpeggio into it. But we're going to add just one note that it's kind of anachronistic to bluegrass to just go, creates a little bit more anticipation than the more sort of obvious. It just adds a little bit more to it. And so in the beginning here, we're playing those on the second, third, and fourth beat. So when I counted, I went 1, and then 2 is going to be 2, 3, 4, 1. They're all quarter notes, so all downstrokes. And then going into the first little bit, there's this tremolo. And one of the things about it is we're doing this double stop and we're playing this pretty loose tremolo. Nothing like crazy or anything. And to make it sound a little bit more bluegrassy, if you take the double stop, this double stop that we're going to, and you play the first notes, so like that first downstroke, 1 fret behind, so I'm going to be on the 5th fret and the 3rd fret, this like C double stop. If I go back, so I'm on the 4th and the 2nd fret, and then slide into this immediately, you get that sound. Just gives it a little bit of that push, which is also part of what makes bluegrass sound like bluegrass. So after that little tremolo, we have some more single note stuff, and one of the things that sort of tripped me up is making sure to do the positioning right. Like I'll often shift into second position to avoid using my pinky because I'm kind of lazy, and you can't really do that here. Immediately it comes up in playing this first fret. If you're up here, it's a really awkward to jump all the way back to this first fret. So you have to stay in first position. So we want to do that double stop with our middle and ring finger. So this melody has a lot of like sustained sort of notes. Darling, you toyed with a toy hard. I think you played the game right from the start, which we can't really do on the mandolin. Like, we don't have a bow, there's not really sustain. So we're mostly outlining that melody in double stops and playing our loose tremolo over it. There's kind of just these patterns in between, like they're just connecting the ideas. I'm doing this with my hands a lot, I realized. So we start out with that, and then we just have this, and then we go into the next. So it's very simple. So what's making it sound really good is the delivery of the tremolo bits, where it's this really making sure that that is really steady and even, but has a swing to it, will make it sound like it makes it sing a little bit more. And that's one of the things that usually is kind of hard on the mandolin, to sort of sound lyrical and not just like a bunch of random notes, especially with something fast like this. So making sure that those phrases are really steady and also push a little bit is what's going to sell this. So when we get to measure 9, I'm going to break that rule I set earlier about staying in the right position, because fretting this double stop with the pinky and the middle finger is just not very comfortable. So we're going to shift to second position for it, so using our index finger on the 3rd fret. But when we get to that double stop, we need to be back in first position, because we're going to end up with the same thing where we have to hit this 2nd fret, and it's going to be awkward to like shift into that 2nd fret from the 3rd fret with just our index finger. So how we're going to achieve that is, there's a little gap. You can see in measure 10, the and of 4, the last note is a ghost note, so you could play that if you want, but you can also use it as an opportunity to shift back. So we could go shift back into this first position so that we're ready to go with the index finger. Just make it a little bit easier, but practicing that shift might take a minute. Then at the very end, we have this very cool Monroe sort of thing, where there's this little triplet thing. It's like, so that's coming like after the downbeat of the last chord in this sort of section. Our last phrase sort of starts at the end of the 13th measure here, and so we're going. So that C note, that last note, that's like the end of the verse that we're playing, essentially. Darling, you toyed with a toy heart. But we're ending there on heart, like the end of the thing. But we're going to add these 2 C chords there. And like just that alone is like pretty, I don't know, it's a very like old school sort of mandolin thing to do. Followed by, in the like 4th beat of this measure, we have this little triplet, just going up from G, like up a G scale essentially. Again, ignore the mandolin being a little out of tune. He is cold. I was in the pool! And then we're ending on this 5th note. The thing that's kind of weird about it is that you're going to end up on an upstroke doing that. And like you could do, there's like the Irish way of doing triplets where you can kind of get around that, but we don't really want that sound. It's just this really quick. It's just this like little ending thing, just a little flourish at the end. So it's okay to end on that upstroke, because then like if you were going to come in immediately, which you can usually get away with like waiting a measure to come in with the rhythm after that, but if you wanted to come in right away, it's fine for this to be an upstroke because you'd be playing a chord on the second beat, like 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, here's the solo. It comes in on the 4th beat. There's a little ghost note thing on the 3rd beat, but so I'm going to count to 4, and then I'm going to count to 2 and leave a space on the 3, and we'll come in on 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. So the solo is pretty much the same as the kickoff. It's the same part of the song, same chord structure, and it's still this idea of outlining the melody with double stops and doing these little sort of scalular phrases to connect them. The only difference really, there's a couple of things that are phrased a little bit differently. For example, in the kickoff it's played, but this time it's played a little bit differently. I think that that's kind of cool, but it was almost surely just a coincidence. There's a couple of things that are phrased a little bit differently. What it sounds like to me in the recording is that like they've been playing this song, and it's very exciting. Like J.D. Crow's playing on this is so... It's always so good. I've heard it so many times, and every time I hear that one fill, and if you've heard the song, you know what I'm talking about. I still lose my mind. It's in the when we're touring and stuff. There's been many times of just listening just to that lick over and over again. So it's very, at this point, it's been pretty exciting playing the song. So there's just a little bit more like vigor, sort of, in this solo. So some things are phrased a little bit differently. Going to this C7 chord, and the kickoff we go. It's just very straight, but in this we're doing a little bit of a syncopated thing. So the thing to sort of keep in mind there, like the thing that would probably be the trickiest, is that in measure 21, the downstroke, the first beat, is still this C double stop, 5 and 2, and then it goes on that upstroke to the 3 and 2, this C7. And that just creates this little off-kilter thing, which Tony, when he's playing, Tony Rice is playing guitar. I didn't mention that. It wasn't necessarily relevant. But Tony is playing also very excitedly, and he's really hitting these C7 chords with a lot of intensity, and so I think it's kind of matching that. So the big sort of difference with this solo from the kickoff is this very iconic ending, and it's taking that same sort of thing from the kickoff where we did that, but we're going to do it a little bit differently. We're going to add this cool just like jump, this massive 2-octave jump. It's very exciting. So it's going to go. So let's break that down a little bit. So we have that same triplet into the C note as before, and we are going to still end on that upstroke, which isn't super convenient because then we're jumping 2 octaves to this high C note, but there's time in between. It's beat 1 and then beat 2, so there's time for you to hit the downstroke the same way that it was like, it's just like that. You just have to jump a little further to hit this high C note. So then we have this, after we do this big jump, we have this little minor third, major third lick, which is very cool. It like sticks out from the rest of the solo kind of. There's not that kind of dissonance. And then going to G, we have to get back into first position now. And so there's this little slide thing that's happening. It's hard to tell on the recording. This was sort of my estimation of what was happening, where you're playing this 5th fret with your middle finger and then sliding it down to the 3rd fret. So now we're back in first position. And it's a slide where you don't want to start sliding immediately. You don't want to go. You want that first note to ring and then slide, where it's like 1 and letting it ring a little bit and waiting for that slide. It's a kind of hard thing to do at first, but once you get the hang of it, it'll make it sound, again, a little bit more lyrical and a little less mechanical. And then we're just working our way back to this C. And then we have this other double stop, and it is actually going to do a kind of Irishy triplet thing where it's this minor third again into the major third, and so we're going to use our index finger for both of those. And then we're playing the 5th note here, not the 5th note, the 5th fret, a G note, and then we're going to end on that C. So it's really just this arpeggio, which is like a G run essentially, but we're adding this note before, and so we end up with. So what's happening is I'm playing those 3 notes as a triplet, so I end on this downstroke, so it would be an upstroke next, but it's on the next string, so we can just keep going down. So we can go down, up, down, down.
Hello. Welcome to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed the lesson. I spent a bunch of money on fancier equipment so it could look nicer. So I thought it would be funny to come out here in the dark to film the end of the video. To be fair, I meant to do it in the light. I just sort of forgot. But yeah, I think it turned out looking really nice. The sound, I'm going to try to make that a little better. I've always been, just like not a sound person. I got some other equipment, and I think we're going to make it sound a little nicer in the future too. I'm looking forward to doing some more videos like this. I've got some other songs, but I'm also going to try to work through the rest of that Bluegrass Album Band stuff. It's really great stuff. It's interesting sort of trying to pick versions to teach. Like I could teach the Monroe version of Toy Heart, but I don't know. It's its own like specific thing now, like doing Monroe style or whatever. I feel like Doyle's playing on this recording is a lot more accessible as something to learn because it's more like something somebody would play in a jam, I guess. I don't know. It's a long thing I could talk about for a long time, but I do have some other stuff planned. But if you have like a song or a particular solo you're interested in, let me know in the comments, and we can see what we can do. Also, if you have any suggestions about the lighting or the sound or whatever, or things you liked or didn't like,
Get in the comments!
It does help the commenting on the videos, just like the liking and the subscribing. I mean, it's just every YouTube video is begging people to like and subscribe, but it does really make a pretty huge difference. I live on a I live on the highway. Um, I'm I'm gonna be putting out more material though, so if you like this, you can subscribe. And hopefully, now that I got a little bit of a handle on this, I can also make some other kinds of material, like I don't know, more just like talking about mandolin and bluegrass, whatever, that kind of thing. I do have a Patreon page. It sort of mentions that in the description. If you want the like actual PDF sheet music of this, you can head over there. It's free right now. It's just up there on a free post. There is a bunch of stuff if you become a member. I mean, we have like 100, 150, something like that. Transcriptions of other solos and lots of tunes and different styles and stuff. Some old lessons and things like that. So if you're interested in that, you can check it out. I am going to restructure it a little bit. I think making these videos moving forward, these videos take a little bit more effort, and so I kind of can't do it as quickly. And I also want there to still be a lot of um, free content, so it might end up being something where like the kickoff is free on YouTube, but then the solo is on Patreon. I don't know. If you have any like thoughts on that, yeah, let me know. But for now, if you want that transcription, you head over to the Patreon. It's totally free. Although, if you want to sign up, even not just for the tabs and stuff, like, I put a lot of effort into making videos, and if you follow me on other places, I do a lot of other stuff. I serve on the board of directors at IBMA, and, teach at workshops and camps and festivals a lot. And a lot of my ability to do any and all of that stuff comes from the support I get on Patreon. And I'll have some new videos up soon. I'm working on them now. But in the meantime, I hope you have a good February. And I gotta go in before the bats come get me. Okay, bye.